So I am back with another Lori Vallow Podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and also hit the bell so you can get a notification every time I upload a new video. As you should already know, I only started this channel a few weeks ago. It was basically just an account that I never used, and approaching this topic still feels alien to me. But it has become such a fascinating case with its niche audience, and I'm going to give you some quality listening time. Now, I've got some notes in front of me, and for some reason, even though I've done quite a few of these, there's just something overtaking me because I'm still not believing that just a few weeks after I started these podcasts, the kids were found. I mean, if I had started doing this in, say, January or December, we would be a long, long way off of finding out what happened to those kids, and it would have been kind of like a directionless podcast. But it just so happens that a few weeks after, not even a few weeks, probably like about 11 days after I did the first podcast, or 2 weeks after I did the first podcast on this subject, the kids were found. And I can tell you, I don't know why I was crying when the kids were found, because I shouldn't really have been crying. I don't feel like I have the right to cry when I didn't know them. And Lori's son, who I feel real empathy for, I just feel terribly sorry for him. And he's just a complete survivor, in my opinion. I mean, I'm just so glad he was able to get out of that situation early on, move back to the mainland, find his own life, get his own life going. And I hope having a wife and a daughter is going to make things a little bit easier for him, because, it must have been really horrific and shocking to hear that your siblings are buried in the backyard of a man who your mother has married, and on top of that, not knowing where his siblings were for so long. I just don't even want to imagine the pain that he's going through. And I think I was crying because I was just shocked, because I really thought, I mean, deep down I knew that these kids were not alive, but part of me thought that, even though I was right about a lot of things, I knew that finding them was going to be difficult. I mean, they'd searched the property before and they hadn't found them. So I'm now wondering if there was a tip-off, if a conversation was overheard or recorded, because the police seemed like they knew exactly where to look. And I don't think they would have known where to find those bodies if they hadn't had some kind of tip-off. But, we'll see what happens. I don't know the full story of all of this. But I am really glad that the children have been found, because now we can have closure. Now we can know what happened. I have no doubt that Lori and Chad are both responsible for what happened. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, we all talk about in true crime, we talk about the presumption of innocence. But, only common sense. All you need is common sense to know that these two people, they've been talking about where are the kids for weeks and months, and they've been avoiding and evading and fleeing. So don't tell me that Lori didn't know that something wasn't right with her children. I mean, even if you want to say that you were trying to protect your children, you're trying to hide your children to protect them from whatever, you would be in contact with your children. You would call your children. You would have some kind of contact with them. So she obviously hasn't been in contact with these kids for a long time. And that would have been enough to make her concerned. But she didn't seem concerned at all. The fact that she could be in Hawaii dancing at her wedding and her kids were nowhere to be seen, that to me just shows her complete lack of empathy. It shows that she's a narcissist and a sociopath, and so is he. And, he used to be a gravedigger. So don't tell me that those kids were in the back garden and he had no idea about it. in his yard, in his backyard. Don't tell me that he had no idea where those kids were. So him pleading not guilty, he's just trying to wiggle his way out of this. He knew exactly where those kids were, and so did Lori. And I think it's absolutely a disgrace. She is a family annihilator, just like Chris Watts. I was watching a podcast today, and one of the speakers was saying how this crime case hasn't blown up in the mainstream media. And it really got me thinking, because it actually has blown up. It's a huge case now. In fact, people who visit this channel are coming for Lori Vallow, not really Chris Watts. It's a huge story with its niche audience. When it comes to Fox News or CNN or NBC or ABC or whatever other news channel, they've been tackling the COVID-19 case and the protesting. But this story is massive with its target audience. In fact, it's becoming bigger than the Chris Watts case, because I actually realized today that Lori is basically a female Chris Watts. And she was having an affair as well. She was having an affair with this man. I was also thinking the other day, I don't understand what she saw in Chad Daybell. I mean, Charles was far better looking, in my opinion. He had a lot of money. I just don't understand what led her to Chad. But, narcissists, they discard. And I think that's what she did. She discarded her ex-husband for a new husband. And I don't know if Charles was a good person or not. But what I do know is he didn't deserve what happened to him. He deserved to have an investigation into how he, how he came to his demise. And I was looking at the body cam footage and like an extended version, and it's pretty obvious to me that the police really didn't believe him, really didn't take him seriously when he was telling them that she's lost her mind, that she's taken 35 grand out of my account, that she's doing all these things. The police really didn't take him seriously. And that is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. Because if they had taken him seriously and done a proper investigation into his death and kept an eye on what was going on, maybe the kids would still be alive today. And I'm trying to think about how this woman went from this supposedly devoted mother to a family annihilator. I mean, she got rid of 2 kids, she got rid of her husband, so she's a family annihilator. I was looking also at Chad Daybell's website, and I'm looking at it before it gets taken down. And there's a glowing report on him, I think this glowing report, I think he actually wrote it. He makes himself out to be this this writer, this well-respected writer. And it says here about Chad Daybell has worked in the publishing business for the past 2 decades and has written more than 25 books. The Times of Turmoil series is a sequel to Chad's best-selling Standing in Holy Places. And I haven't ordered any of these books, and I won't be ordering them. But, it's a lot about the LDS. A lot of them are about the LDS faith, and he talks a lot about the second coming and just some really bizarre stuff. Finally, thank you for the many positive comments about the first volume of this series, and I sincerely hope you enjoy the next volume as these families move another step closer to the Saviour's second coming. Well, the so-called Saviour's second coming is definitely not going to happen, and they're most likely going to be in prison. But another thing that's really annoying me is that, where are the charges? I mean, there's another crime case in Florida many years ago where this woman murdered this guy for his money. You might have heard about it. It's about this guy who won the lottery, and this woman befriended him and murdered him, and his body ended up in her back garden, and she tried to give the police all kinds of excuses about why that body was in her back garden. And, the police didn't believe her at all. And she was charged swiftly. And she's now sitting in prison for the crime. I think she's trying to appeal her case. But, I mean, you only have to use logic, put two and two together. These two people have been avoiding, evading, fleeing from answering about where these kids are. And you're telling me that he had no idea that those kids were in his backyard? I mean, come on. Who is anyone fooling? Charge them already. They should rot in hell. And I was just thinking about Lori as well in all of this. I was just thinking about her personality, her sociopathy, her psychopathy, and all that kind of stuff. And I was just thinking, she's 45, 46. When did this mental illness start? Because I do think there's something wrong with her. I don't think she's insane. I don't think she doesn't know right from wrong. I think she absolutely knows right from wrong. And I think that's why she told so many lies. And I think that's why she told people to lie about the children's whereabouts. And I think that's why she fled. She actually reminds me of Carla Homolka as well. So that's not a very good comparison. Because Carla Homolka is just a complete sociopath. But women don't become mentally ill in their 40s. They don't suddenly wake up in their mid-40s and become mentally ill or mentally disturbed. And I do think she is. So when did this all start? Because I remember watching the body cam footage with Charles, and he said that she's been, she's becoming worse and worse over the last 5 years. And I was hoping for things to get better. But, most people who are mentally ill or mentally disturbed show signs of this in their teens. They don't start showing signs of this in their 30s and 40s. So that really, unless she was always a sociopath, but she covered it up well. That's what I think. Maybe she was always a narcissistic sociopath. Maybe she was always disturbed and she just covered it up very, very well. Because that's another thing that I'm grappling with. I don't understand how a woman who was supposed to be this devoted mother for so long, how she suddenly deteriorates, in her 40s. And initially, I thought that Chad was the mastermind of all of this, that he was the mastermind, that he was supposed to be the prophet or the cult leader or whatever. And I actually now think that Lori wears the trousers in relationships. I think she is the go-getter. I think she is the seeker. I think she is the mastermind. I think she is the manipulator. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Chad is a saint by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's a wicked attraction. I think they both brought the worst out of each other. But I don't think she was some sweet little angel who got manipulated by this cult figure. I actually think that she sought him out. She's no angel by any stretch of the imagination. She was not manipulated to do anything. They were in this together. And I think, if anything, she wore the trousers in the relationship. She was the manipulator. She's a manipulative person. But it's just a bizarre case. It's a very, very bizarre case. And I'm still wondering how the police actually found out where those bodies were. Another thing I want to talk about is Lori's niece, Melanie. Is that her name? There's so many different names in this. Sometimes I forget the names. There's Tammy Daybell. There's Charles Vallow. There's the ex-husband who died of mysterious circumstances. There's the other husband, apart from Charles, that died in mysterious circumstances. And actually, her former sister-in-law said that Lori was deteriorating mentally for quite some time, that she was talking about, getting in a car and driving off a cliff. So I don't know if religion just completely screwed her up over time. I don't know what it is. Everyone has the right to believe what they want to believe. I don't discriminate against people for what they believe, their religion, whatever, or I try not to. But maybe somewhere along the line, she just took religion and twisted it. She just got twisted into something. You know, her mind just became warped. And like I said about Lori's niece, I think she knows a lot more than what she's letting on. I don't think she's innocent in all of this. I'm not saying that, I'm not accusing her of murder or anything like that. But I think that she knows a lot more than what she's letting on. And I think the police should do a lie detector on her. Wasn't there an attempted murder of her ex-husband, or the husband that she was in child custody battle with? I think the police need to look into that, because there's something very suspicious about that. And I don't think she's as sweet, as innocent as she makes herself out to be. I'm definitely keeping 2 eyes on this case. And I'm just getting very impatient, because I want to see charges. I want to see murder charges, and I want to see murder charges swiftly, because these people need to be brought to justice.